Hello everyone, this is Andre from SWL. Welcome to episode 19 of my series, the SWL DXing News Report. This episode was recorded on the 14th of December 2024. In this podcast, I talk about radio-related news, frequency changes, new stations, closures, and anything else that might interest DXers. An RSS feed link is available via Spotify. It is in the video description. In this week's episode, I talk about a BBC ban in Niger. The author Stephen King is closing his 3 radio stations in the United States. Radio Maria in St Petersburg, Russia is temporarily suspending transmissions, and there is another new shortwave station in Finland. Also, the AWR shortwave relays from some different locations around the world appear to have returned, specifically Madagascar and Germany. The BBC has added another 30 minutes of Russian programming to its UAE relay via WRN. And I have a reminder of the very special once-a-year Christmas broadcast Gruss on board to German mariners. I also have another reception report from Alex in Lutsk, Ukraine. And I end, as usual, with the HF propagation forecast. The West African country of Niger announced on Thursday, 12 December, that it is suspending BBC radio transmissions for 3 months. 2 French broadcasters, Radio France International and France 24, have been banned there already since August 2023. Programs by these broadcasters have been relayed in Niger via local radio partners. France 24 reports that the ban on the BBC, which is accused of airing erroneous information and undermining the morale of troops fighting jihadists, will come into force with immediate effect countrywide. Popular BBC programs in Niger include ones in the Hausa language. Since seizing power in a coup in July 2023, the military government in Niger has banned several Western media outlets. The renowned author and lifelong rocker Stephen King is closing 3 radio stations that he owns in Bangor, Maine. There are 2 FM stations and 1 medium wave, or AM as it is known in the US, that are affected by this closure. The Associated Press reports that the author said last week that radio across the United States has been overtaken by giant corporate broadcasting groups. But he said that he loved being a local, independent owner for many years. He said that his radio stations have been bleeding money. King entered the world of radio at age 36 in 1983 when he bought a radio station that he rebranded WZON in deference to his book The Dead Zone. That station went through a few permutations before closing and then being reacquired by King in 1990. It became known as the Zone Corporation and now consists of WKIT-FM on 100.3 MHz. The station is known as Stephen King's Rock and Roll radio station. There is also WZON-AM on 620 kHz, a retro radio station. And there is an adult alternative station, WZLO-FM, on 103.1 MHz. They will all go off the air on the 31st of December. Reports from the Russ DX news channel indicate that Radio Maria, a Catholic station in St Petersburg, Russia, was forced to suspend broadcasting on the 1053 kHz frequency due to lack of funds. The station has taken a temporary pause for 2 months and may return to the airwaves if the funding issues can be resolved. On to some shortwave frequency news. There appear to be a number of new stations and frequencies to monitor. There is yet another new shortwave station in Finland, Radio Ambience. Radio Ambience broadcasts from Lapinranta in South Karelia in Finland. It has started transmissions on 6095 kHz with only 20 watts of power. It can be heard on Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 0800 to 2300 UTC, according to the World Radio and TV Handbook. Radio Ambience joins a growing list of small private shortwave broadcasters in Finland, including Scandinavian Weekend Radio, Radio Pico, Radio Blacksmith Knoll, and Real Mix Radio. The BBC Russian service, relayed by WRN from the UAE, can now also be heard on Sundays, according to a listener of this podcast who heard such an announcement on the BBC program. The BBC Russian service can thus be heard on both Saturdays and Sundays on 11785 kHz. The Saturday program is from 1700 to 1800 UTC, and the Sunday transmission is from 1500 to 1530 UTC, both of them on 11785 kHz. Adventist World Radio has returned to some relay stations outside Guam. As has been reported widely, AWR stopped all its shortwave transmissions at the end of October this year, when the B24 shortwave season kicked in. The only transmissions that remained were from its own transmitter in Guam. Since then, some relays from other countries have reappeared. AWR in Malagasy from Talata Volonondri in Madagascar can now be heard daily from 0300 to 0400 UTC on 6965 kHz. I heard this transmission myself with a clear ID, and I can confirm that it is back. The Malagasy service can also be heard from 1400 to 1500 UTC. Also from Talata Volonondri, the same frequency 6065 kHz. There have also been reports that the service in Oromo and the service in Igbo have returned, but I have not been able to hear these yet. AWR Oromo, a language spoken in Ethiopia, is set to now transmit from Nauen in Germany from 1730 to 1800 UTC daily on 15460 kHz. AWR in Igbo, a language spoken in Nigeria, also now transmits from Nauen from 1930 to 2000 UTC on 9525 kHz. But as I say, I haven't been able to pick up these last two yet. Radio Argus, a pirate radio station probably from the UK, was heard on 6935 kHz on Sunday 8 December by various DXers in Europe, from about 1457 UTC to 1736 UTC. The station has a Facebook page that says they are planning their next transmission, so it's probably worth monitoring this frequency on Sundays. The station says that since 1985, Radio Argus has been the station that brought you rock music free of commercials and licenses. It might be a good idea to follow their Facebook page, as the next transmission will be announced there. Just search for Radio Argus on Facebook. The Facebook page does not have any information about the location of the station, but it appears to be located in the United Kingdom somewhere, possibly Cornwall. Don't forget to listen out for the very special Gruss on Board, that means Greetings on Board broadcasts on the 24th of December. These transmissions happen once a year only, so you only have one day to catch these. You can hear them on Christmas Eve from 1800 to 2100 UTC, and I will give you all the frequencies. Gruss on Board is a special program by the German broadcaster Norddeutsche Rundfunk, that means North Germany Radio, and it goes out to German mariners on ships all around the world. You can listen on various frequencies all around the world. The frequencies and target areas are to the North Atlantic, 15770 kHz. To the South Atlantic, 13830 kHz. To the Northeast Atlantic, 6030 kHz. To the Indian Ocean, 9635 kHz. To both the Atlantic and the Southern Indian Ocean, 11650 kHz. And to Europe, 6080 kHz. All of these, as I said, will be on 24 December from 1800 to 2100 UTC. NDR says on its website that Gruss on Board will contain greetings from family members and friends to their loved ones at sea who cannot be home for Christmas. There will also be impressions from the German Neumayer station in Antarctica, reports on life in North German coastal towns, and Christmas greetings to the whole world. Gruss on board also shows how important seafaring is for trade and what enormous career opportunities await young people who would like a career at sea. I have a reception report from Alex in Lutsk, Ukraine. This is the second time that he has sent me a report. Thank you very much, Alex. He used a Chodosen DX286 and his antenna was a 10-meter wire. Here are the stations that he received. Reach Beyond Australia on 11945 kHz from Kununurra, 11:30 UTC, that was on 29 October. Sinpo 45444 in Rohingya language. Myanmar Radio on 5985 kHz from Yangon, that was at 14:25 UTC on 25 November. Sinpo 25342 and music was playing. China National Radio 1 on 15380 kHz from Beijing at 1000 UTC, that was on 15 November, Sinpo 34443. China National Radio 2 on 15540 kHz from Lingxi, also at 1000 UTC on 12 November, Sinpo 35443. China National Radio 5 on 9410 kHz from Beijing at 1300 UTC, Sinpo 24442. This was on 25 November. All three these China National Radio stations were transmitting in Mandarin. Then China National Radio 7 on 15550 kHz from Huhot at 1000 UTC on 11 November, Sinpo of 24442 in Cantonese. China National Radio 11 on 9480 kHz from Baoji, Sifangshan at 1400 UTC on 11 November, Sinpo 25342 in Tibetan. China National Radio 13 on 13700 kHz from Lingxi at 1000 UTC on the 8th of November, Sinpo 35443 in Uyghur. China National Radio 17 on 11630 kHz from Lingxi at 1100 UTC on 11th of November, Sinpo 35443 in Kazakh. CGTN Radio on 11760 kHz from Kunming at 1200 UTC on 25 November, Sinpo of 35443 in English. Xinjiang Broadcasting Station on 9705 kHz from Urumqi at 1100 UTC. This was on 13 November, Sinpo of 35343 in Kyrgyz. Xizang Broadcasting Station on 7240 kHz from Lhasa, Tibet at 1500 UTC on the 15th of November, Sinpo 34443 in Mandarin. KSDA from Agat, Guam on 17735 kHz at 1329 UTC on the 3rd of November, Sinpo of 45444. This was in Assamese language. KTWR from Agana in Guam on 15610 kHz on the 29th of October, Sinpo of 45444 in Mongolian. Akashvani from Bengaluru on 11810 kHz at 12:30 UTC on 29 October, Sinpo 45444 in Pashto. NHK World Radio Japan on 9750 kHz from Yamata at 14:30 UTC on 28 October, Sinpo 35443 in Mandarin. KBS World Radio on 15160 kHz from Kimjai at 0900 UTC on 29 October, Sinpo 35443 in Korean. Voice of Korea on 15245 kHz from Kujang at 0800 UTC on 29 October, Sinpo 35443 in Russian. RNZ Pacific on 13755 kHz from Rangitaiki at 1100 UTC on 28 October, SINPO of 45444 in English. FEBC International on 12095 kHz from Bokawe in the Philippines at 12:30 UTC on the 1st of November. SINPO 45444, language Achang. Radio Thailand on 17640 kHz from Udontani at 05:22 UTC on the 19th of November, SINPO 35443 in English. Voice of Tajik on 7245 kHz from Dushanbe at 1400 UTC. This was on the 2nd of November, SINPO of 33442. He says the audio was a bit low on this one. Radio Taiwan International on 7300 kHz from Tamsui at 1500 UTC on the 2nd of November, SINPO of 35443 for the first 30 seconds of the transmission, and then CNR jamming started and the SINPO changes to 32442. This was in Mandarin. Voice of Vietnam on 12020 kHz from Hanoi at 13:30 UTC on 25 November, SINPO 34343 in English. Thank you so much to Alex for this report. To end, as usual, a very brief propagation outlook based on forecasts from the NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. The viewer in Indonesia also shared some links to the Australian Space Weather Prediction site with me, and there are some very nice propagation forecasts on that site. I will now take some of my information for this forecast from the Australian site, and I will share those links with you, the listeners, as well. I just want to mention again here about this propagation forecast. It is by nature very, very general. Space weather is not entirely predictable. It also differs depending on where you are in the world. So what I try to aim for in my propagation forecast is just a very general outlook. Also, if there are solar storms coming that might lead to some blackouts, I try to just highlight some of these main space events that might affect our HF listening. Otherwise, there are always the links in the description of this podcast where you can find some more detailed information. The planetary A index for the period from now to the end of the year is expected to range from 5 to 8, which is good. That means HF propagation will be quite good. Only on the 19th of December it will rise to 12. And the highest K index over this period will be 4, also on the 19th. On the 19th, Earth will be affected by a CHHSS, a coronal hole high-speed stream. These are recurrent high-speed streams and can be predicted. So on the 19th, conditions will be a little bit unstable. But otherwise, from now until the end of the year, the A index will be low. The K indices will also range between 1 and 3. Geomagnetic field activity is likely to remain at mostly quiet levels throughout. It looks like we are in for some good listening over this holiday period in December. There is a link in the description of this podcast to a website called Ham Radio for non-techies with very clear and simple propagation charts that you can refer to for the latest HF propagation conditions on a daily basis. And you will also find some links to the Australian Space Weather Prediction Center now that also provides clear and interesting HF propagation information. That's all for today then. Please send me your news items and reception reports so that I can share them here. If you would like to share reception reports, please tell me your location, the radio you used, the stations and frequencies you received, and please provide SINPO or SIO codes for the signals you received. You can contact me at andre9@duck.com with your reception reports or any news you would like to share. That is ANDRE, the number 9, @duck.com. Happy listening, everyone.